please forgive me, I started without you. So here's the story. I have these 12 volt fans. I got them years ago from work. They came out of a computer. I don't even remember. I've had them for a while. And I've also had these old ancient 12 volt power supplies. I can tell you how old they are because they actually have 3 prongs on them. Nobody puts 3 prongs on them. These are Hayes, so they're probably with the old modems from years ago. And I had one of these at home and I had one of these in my office, and I've just been using them as a ad hoc fan for the past number of years. And I just had the wires, and I put the wires into the adapter, and I've had a fan, and I would just stand it in front of the window or on the desk. And I thought, hey, let's make something out of this. And so first thing I wanted was a switch, and I found a little tiny switch because I didn't want a massive switch. And ironically, this switch is salvaged from a power supply, a computer power supply, much like that one. And in the unlikely event that somebody actually wants to duplicate this, you could get a fan and a switch from a power supply of a computer and proceed. Anyways, I've been prototyping this evening, and I've been like working ahead, and I'm like, you know, I think I'm at a point where I think I'm just going to go ahead and build it instead of making an actual prototype. I first tried making a little frame, and I think now what I'm settled on is I'm going to make a little picture frame that's going to go around it, that's going to hold the fan, and I will have to work on the switch bit, and then I'll have a little stand for this thing to stand on. So, here we go. And here it is out of the clamps. Now, my particular fan had a bit of a bulge here, and to make that fit, I first cut a rabbet on the inner edge of all the pieces. It fits in there nice and snug. Now, next I want some sort of a pivot mechanism, and I need to mount the switch. And I'm thinking I'm going to put the switch in the middle. That's really going to chew away a lot of the substance, so I might think about that for a minute. Meanwhile, I need to reinforce these joints. So I got some little shims that I will be gluing in to reinforce the miter joints. So this is a switch that I'm planning on using, and I wish I'd thought about this earlier. I was planning to put this in the bottom here, and as I was thinking about it, I thought, well, instead of trying to drill a careful little hole there, I think what I'm just going to do is I'm going to cut a notch on the inside that this can fit into. It'll make it a lot easier for getting it in and out for finishing, and when it's installed, the fan, bottom of the fan will just cover up the lip there. But I wish I'd thought of that before I put it together, because now I need to get in here with a saw and do some cutting. Very nice. Okay, I'm going to put away the electronics for a minute because let's focus on the frame. So I have a piece of oak which I ripped a couple strips out of, and I think we're going to do a couple of vertical arms like this. Not quite sure how high I'm going to make it, and then I'm going to make this so it tilts and pivots. So let's get the base and just take the dimensions right off the piece. And actually we need a little bit of space, so we'll just run the pencil a little bit wide, not much. Then we'll take it over and cut it down the size. I can't see a thing. That's better. Okay, now These are going to go here. I could just screw them on and it would be fine, but I want to notch them in. Why not? I try to get it in the middle, but I'm still going to make sure I measure from the same side for both of them because things can move. So almost there, just need a way for this to pivot. Now, I have this box of jig hardware, and of course this is crazy overkill, but I've got it. So a couple of bolts and a couple of these little knobs I don't think I'll use in jigs much. And they will come in like this. So I need to recess it in this knob, actually a fair bit. I'm using a Minwax can for making my arcs, but I found that Watco or even house brand paint cans will work just as well for drawing the arcs on the corner of your project. Well, it's the next day, it's out of the clamps and it's starting to look interesting. Got a little bit of an inward tip on this despite trying to be careful with clamping it, but fortunately I had left a little bit of extra space, so it's a little snug getting in there, but that should be okay. But anyways, I'm going to take a 1/4 inch dowel and I'm going to pop one in each side. And that will give a little bit of decoration because I'm using a exotic wood, Hadouk or Jatoba or something like that. It's a bit of a reddish color, which will match the splines. Gives a little bit of interesting color and a lot of reinforcement. So I kept the soldering off screen because frankly I'm not an expert at it and I don't really want people using me for advice. The wire comes out of the motor here. I took the label off because I thought it was ugly. I wired that into the switch. And I put one of these little jacks on it. And there we go. So let's put some finish on the frame and then we can put it all together. So a little bit of lacquer finish makes it look nice. Now the trickiest part is I don't want this to rub, so I had put a little bit of gap in there, but then as I said it glued it tight. So what I want to try doing is fitting some washers in. And of course that's going to be the trickiest thing, is getting the washers in. So what I'm going to try doing is putting a dab of CA glue. Open. On this side, same thing. Oh, that's working. That's one. That's 2. All right. So now let us fit in our electronics. Haha. Switch nicely fits in with a little friction. It's tight. And the fan, that's the correct way. I might still put a little dab of hot glue there. I don't know if it's really necessary because the fan will lock the switch in place. Now fortunately I have a right angle drill which can fit in here because I marked out the little pilot. And there we have our finished desktop fan. It tilts. You can crank it down with these knobs to lock it in place. Or you can tip it up, tip it down, on off switch, and plug in the AC adapter. The sticker which I took off claimed this was a silent fan. It's clearly not silent, but it's pretty quiet for a fan. Turned out a lot better looking than I thought. I thought it was going to be a fairly homely looking thing, but it sure beats just having the bare fan standing on the on your desk or in the window. I almost forgot about the feet, which are totally in keeping with the theme. As you'll recall, this is an old salvaged computer fan, 12-volt computer fan that I got from somewhere, and the switch I salvaged out of a old computer power supply. These feet are also computer feet. Take a close look. These are rubber feet that were originally given with Sun Enterprise 250 computers. They're like 15 years old. I was rummaging in the back of a storeroom at work and I found a box full of these things that had been sitting there for all these years. Self-adhesive, but I've used them before, and if the adhesive, if the adhesive fails, these feet are still good because they are recessed, so you can easily pop a screw in there to hold the foot in place and it will not rub on the table or on the floor. I used feet like this under my cajon that I built a couple of years ago. I just think it's hilarious that the switch is salvaged from a computer, the fan is salvaged from a computer, and even the feet are salvaged from old computers. Alright folks, so that brings us to the end of another fantastic project. As always, I'd like to thank you for stopping by and spending some time in my shop. I hope you found something interesting and enjoyable. If you feel I've earned it, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.